This time on Film Ranker, we are looking at Walt Disney Animation Studios, and specifically the 9 movies released by the flagship brand in the 2010s, which was one of Disney's most lucrative and creative decades yet. After the boom of the 90s, Disney arguably went through a bit of a dip in the zeros, but the 10s saw a return to form with a wide variety of styles, leading to some of Disney's biggest hits ever. So let's take a look and count them down. Number 9, Frozen 2. Historically, Disney animated sequels have almost always gone straight to video and have been more about squeezing a little more out of that original concept than doing their own thing, and that is kind of what this one feels like. Yes, the production's beautiful and it has all the same characters and voices we loved from the original, but it doesn't capture that same charm. None of the songs are as memorable, except maybe the 80s power ballad inspired Lost in the Woods. And while the story has some legitimately great moments, it really does not live up to those sky-high expectations. Number 8. Ralph Breaks the Internet, Wreck-It Ralph 2. Speaking of sequels, the return to Wreck-It Ralph goes a little bit more modern than the 8-bit inspired original in terms of both references and themes. At times it works. There is fun to be had in the Facebook, eBay, and app-inspired jokes, and the GTA-style race crew is an obvious jump for Vanellope, but it doesn't quite have the same charm as seeing Bowser and M. Bison in a villain support group, though the backstage Disney princess part is very entertaining, and honestly, I can always watch Ralph. Number 7, Zootopia. Just because Zootopia is low on this list does not mean it isn't good. Disney just had a heck of a good run in the last 10 years. Zootopia is a little bit of a film noir, a little bit morality tale about not stereotyping, and a lot fun vehicle for Jason Bateman to do his thing. It probably skews the most adult of the bunch. Not a lot of kids are going to go for DMV jokes and Breaking Bad references, and it feels maybe a little bit more DreamWorks than it does Disney, but both the jokes and the story work, and it's nice to see the studio stretching their boundaries a bit and finding some success at it. Just please, no more Shakira songs. Number 6, Winnie the Pooh. When the biggest complaint is that the movie is too short, that's a pretty good sign. This 2011 Winnie the Pooh movie is everything you would want. The same gentle humor and lovable characters that we have loved since we were kids. Tigger bounces, Piglet is scared, Owl's confident enough that everyone thinks that he's wise, and Pooh would really like some honey. There's nothing not to love here, except for the fact that it's just barely over an hour long. Number 5, Tangled. In a lot of ways, Tangled set the stage for what was to come in the 2010s. It featured a slightly sleeker animation style, as well as the modernized title and a generally updated attitude. Rapunzel's instantly likable, but surprisingly complex. Flynn Rider is a very Nathan Fillion-esque hero. Mother Gothel is a modern evil stepmother ruling with guilt and passive aggression. The story's simple in a good way. The songs are fun, especially the Snuggly Duckling number, and it does a good job of towing that line between old and new without being too much of either. In a lot of ways, it's the classic princess tale, but cooler. Number 4, Big Hero 6. This is kind of the first true Disney Marvel mashup, and it was a terrific choice. Disney takes a mostly under-the-radar B team and does a bit of rejigging to create kind of the Incredibles for the official Disney brand. Hero is a relatable, reluctant hero with a meaningful arc, and Baymax steals the show. Even though it is Disney and it has its heart firmly on its sleeve, this movie does not skimp on either the action or the humor that we want from our supers. Number 3, Wreck-It Ralph. Walt Disney took quite a few risks in the 2010s. None were as well delivered as this nostalgic love letter to old school video games. But while the riffs on Atari and Nintendo classics brought us to the party, we stay for the surprising depth and phenomenal voice acting from a cast including the always funny Jack McBrayer, John C. Reilly's titular misunderstood smasher, Sarah Silverman's ultimate anti-princess, and Alan Tudyk, who does his best Disney work yet as the king of candy. It's Mario Kart meets Mean Girls, and it works. Number 2, Moana. With Lin-Manuel Miranda in the mix, it is not a surprise that Moana has the best soundtrack of any Disney film in the 2010s. For my money, the toe-tapping You're Welcome and, of course, the show-stopping How Far I'll Go are two of the best tracks in any decade. On top of that, the movie is terrific. The omnipresent water gives the whole thing constant life and movement, and The Rock is not surprisingly great as the egomaniacal Maui. It captures the heart of Pacific culture so well and brings us Disney's least princessy princess yet. Number 1, Frozen. There is no denying that Frozen is one of the biggest cultural phenomenons of the last decade. If you live on the planet Earth, you have by now heard the song Let It Go 1 million times. And yes, popularity doesn't necessarily equate to quality, but in this case, it actually kind of does. The first half of Frozen is a bit like a Broadway musical. Every song moves the story and gives us insight into the characters, while also being pretty darn catchy. The second half's a bit less singy, but with no less character, and surprises both fun, like the shop owner, and shocking, like Hans being a dink. At the heart is, of course, two very different but somehow equally relatable heroines who have rightfully become the go-to Halloween costume of a whole generation of girls. And that is it. Let me know in the comments how you felt about the last 10 years of Disney animation. Do you think it was a return to form, a step forward, too poppy, could use even more Josh Gad? Either way, please like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you all next time.